Good morning, children. The topic which we are going to do today is poetic devices. The poetic devices which are known as figurative devices, literary devices, as well as the poetic devices. Okay. The knowledge of these devices is very essential. Why do we call it as essential? Because a poem is not a simple poem for you now. A simple poem wherein you just listen to the explanation, you have a summary, you have 2-3 answers, and your poem is complete. Now onwards, a poem is much more beyond that. A poem would be having a literal meaning, a symbolic meaning. One word, any word. Suppose I take the very first poem of your syllabus, The Road Not Taken. Here in this poem, the road is not simply a road. Road refers to the choices which a person encounters in life, the options which a person gets in his life. So here, if road has a literal meaning, the symbolic meaning of the road would be the choices in life, the options which we get in life. Other than that, see, there are poetic devices of many number, but I am introducing you to the poetic devices which are there in your 9th class syllabus. Okay, a few to name: simile, metaphor, alliteration, personification, pun, oxymoron. Some of the words you may be hearing for the very first time, children. But yes, let us begin with them. One by one, all the definitions shall be shared with you, and you'll be explained what exactly poetic devices are. I repeat, you all have to do them fairly neatly in your second copy. All the devices should be done in your second notebook. Right now, pay attention to the explanation part. Okay, I'm sharing the screen. Let's begin with that. Okay. Are you able to see poetic devices? Are you able to see, children, clearly? Okay. Let us start. What exactly are poetic devices? When I introduce you with the word poetic devices, what does that mean? These are the tools, techniques, and figures of speech that help improve the quality, the comprehension is the understanding, and the meaning of a poem. You are able to understand in true terms that what exactly does the poet wish to convey to you. Okay, what are his feelings and how does he express himself in the best possible way? So, poetic devices talks about that. Let's start. The first device, simile. The first device, simile. What simile is? See, right now, please listen carefully because when I'm explaining you the poem, then I won't be repeating the definition. Then I won't be repeating. I would just tell this line as a simile, this line as a metaphor. So you have to retain in your mind that what had I explained about the simile or the metaphor. Okay? So the first device, simile. It is a specific comparison made between two kinds of ideas or objects. Okay. With the usage of the words like and as. Whenever in any poem you find the poet is trying to compare two things, comparison of those two things with the use of the words like and as. Kindly note, this is important over here. Use of the words like and as. Whenever the poet makes a comparison with the use of the words like and as, we call it as a simile. Okay. Examples there for you. She is as beautiful as a rose. We are comparing the beauty of the girl to the beauty of a rose. Rose is a beautiful flower. The girl also looks as beautiful, as pretty, as colorful like a rose does. Okay. Second one, he fought like a lion in the battle. He fought like a lion in the battle talks about the man being very brave while he was fighting. So how do we express? How does the poet express that line? The poet would say he fought like a lion in the battle, and that's understood that he was a brave man while he was fighting. The next. And the children look like bears' cubs. Now this is there in your syllabus. You have a poem, A Legend of the Northland. In the poem, you have a simile over here. And the children, small children, how did they look? They look like the little cubs of a bear. Okay. The next. Metaphor. This is also a comparison. Simile is a comparison. Metaphor too is a comparison. But here the comparison is hidden. Implied comparison between two objects, two ideas, but there are no adjoining words here. No adjoining words. Like in simile, we had like and as, but here there are no words like and as. You have to clearly understand that what is the implied comparison. Like in the previous example, in the similes example I told you, she is as beautiful as a rose. But when I say she is a rose, it's a metaphor. Because that also means with the line she is a rose, it also means that she is as beautiful as a rose. If I say he was a lion in the battle, that doesn't mean that he became a lion in the battle. That also means that he fought very bravely in the battle. So comparison is there, but the comparison is a hidden one. Life is a dream. The camel is the ship of the desert. He was a lion in the battle. The wind god winnows and crushes them all. Now this is there in your syllabus, the poem Wind. Wind being compared to God. Now what exactly is the meaning of the line? When we do the poem, that shall be explained. But other than the references, one example of your syllabus poem is being discussed. Okay, so this is metaphor. Next device. Personification. Personification means when any non-living thing, the inanimate objects or any abstract idea are given human traits and qualities. A non-living thing is being considered as a human being. A non-living thing is being denoted or talked to or referred to as being a human being, and pronouns are used for that. Okay, so the personal pronouns like I, me, he, she, or you are usually used for a river or a mountain or a tree or a mirror, sun, wind. All these things, river, mountain, tree, they are not human beings. And what have you learned While you studied grammar, that we use pronouns he, she, I, you for human beings. But when these pronouns are used for the inanimate objects, we call it as personification. So in your book, there's a poem, Wind. In this poem, see, have a look at the very first example. Look what you did. You threw them all down. The poet is talking to the wind as if wind is a person. So the wind is being personified over here. What you did, you threw them, you tore the pages, you brought rain again. You are very clever at poking fun. So the word you being used for the wind here. Okay, so this is personification. The next, but tree, I have seen you taken and tossed. The next, I am silver and exact, I have no preconceptions. Here the word I is being used for the mirror, as if the mirror is speaking and as if the mirror is telling us. So the use of the pronouns for the non-living objects is considered as personification. Okay. The next, alliteration. Alliteration. It consists of the repetition of the same letter at the beginning of two or more words. Same letter at the beginning of two or more words in a poem. You may see poets at times, in order to give a rhythm and rhyme to the poem, they use some of these devices. To give the poem a musical effect, they use these devices. Okay, so while he is writing a poem, the poet, while he is writing a poem, he would be using some of the words, some letters, some alphabets to give it a musical impact. So he would repeat the same letter at the beginning of two or more words for the rhyme, for the rhythm of the poem. We call it as alliteration. Many poems have alliteration in them. So while we are doing the poems, it would just be told these two words of alliteration. Okay, like the fair breeze blew, white foam flew, the furrow followed free. So this FFBB, it's alliteration. The grizzly gorilla gave the goat a push. I have underlined the alphabets for you to be able to analyze that we consider these as alliteration. Okay. Like the last one, wanted beer, starry spheres, darling dreamers. All these devices are there in the poem Rain on the Roof of your syllabus. So while we are doing, we shall simultaneously keep discussing. Okay, the next, onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Children, I know some of you may be having certain doubts, but we'll have a doubt session on Saturday. Right now, you kindly listen, pay attention. Harshit Singh, there is nothing to smile about it. Be very attentive and seriously understand whatever is being explained. Okay? Onomatopoeia. Sometimes in the poem, there are certain words which refer to the sound of the object. That word in itself is complete. When I say tick-tock, you understand we are talking about a clock. When I say ding-dong, it's automatically understood that we are talking about the doorbell. So this tick-tock, ding-dong, buzz, cackle, roar, jingle, mumble, tinkle, all these are onomatopoeic words. Okay. Rain on the Roof poem of your syllabus. There is a word patter. When the poet talks about the fall of the raindrops onto the roof. So this patter word is onomatopic word. Likewise, the example, the corn was popping in the oven. This popping word is onomatopoeia. I chatter over the stony ways. Chatter, babble, gurgle. All these are onomatopic words. Okay. I understand you may be finding certain things difficult, but right now, you just keep understanding. While we are doing the poems and it is told that this is an example of onomatopoeia, you will get to understand. Okay? So have a look at the definition. This occurs in words which represent the sound and thus suggest the object being talked about. Okay, ding dong automatically tells us about the doorbell. If I say hiss, H-I-S-S, automatically you think about a snake. Jingle. What do you think about when the word jingle comes? You think about the bells. Okay, so all these are examples of onomatopoeia. Next, repetition. Poets often repeat words or phrases not only to create a musical effect in the poem, but also to emphasize a particular thought through it. Repetition is not only for the musical effect, but also the poet wishes to lay stress on a thought, emphasize a thought. For example, have a look. The poem Lake Isle of Ministry of your syllabus. And I shall have peace there. For peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the veils of the morning. Peace, peace, dropping, dropping. It means the poet wishes to convey something very important with the repetition of these words. So other than the musical effect, emphasis is being laid on the concept. Okay. Suppose, see the next example. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. This is an example of the poem Time of the Ancient Mariner, which is not there in your syllabus, but just as an example to tell you that repeatedly he says ice, ice, ice. So that basically tells that he is talking about the amount of ice which was present around the ship. The ice was here, the ice was there, the ice was all around. Means the ship was surrounded from all sides by the ice. Okay? This is repetition. Next. Refrain. Refrain. See, repetition is repetition of simple word. Refrain is repetition of a complete phrase or a sentence. When a complete sentence is being repeated. Repetition was just a word. Refrain is a phrase or a sentence. And the refrain comes usually at the end of the stanza or the end of an alternate stanza. Like a repetition can be there within one line, two lines, within one stanza. But refrain is either at the end of the stanza or at the end of alternate stanza. Then a complete line or a phrase is there. That is refrain. In the poem Rain on the Roof, the word patter is a refrain. As we do the poem, you'll understand. Patter is onomatopoeia. Patter is also a word which has refrain. Like there's a poem Brook by Alfred Lord Tennyson. In this poem, men may come, men may go, but I go on forever. This is an example of a refrain. means after every alternate stanza in the poem, the stanza ends with this line. For men may come, men may go, but I go on forever. So this repetition of the phrase is considered rephrase. The difference has to be understood. Repetition is different. It could be within a line, within two lines, repetition of the word. But refrain is a statement or a phrase at the end of the stanza. Okay? The next, oxymoron. Oxymoron. When two contradictory words, listen carefully, when two contradictory words or terms are used in the same statement within one single line, two opposite words are used. We call it as an oxymoron. These two opposite words are usually, there's a word usually, they are usually a noun and adjective combination. Combination of a noun and an adjective. Okay? For example, cruel kindness. Don't you see that these are opposite words? How is it possible that someone is cruel plus kind? But the poet wishes to convey something through the use of these opposite words. Failed success. Success which doesn't make you happy. We call it as a failed success. Usually, success makes you feel happy. You're excited. But a success which doesn't make you happy. Failed success. Dangerous in a sense. Okay? All these are examples of oxymoron. They were engaged in a friendly strife. Strife is a struggle. A friendly fight. Life is a sweet bitter pill. How could it be sweet plus bitter? Parting is such a sweet sorrow. All these are oxymorons. Next, fun. Fun. Okay, fun. Fun is basically a play with words. We use homophones for that. You may have come across some words which have more than two meanings, three meanings. Okay. So, using such words in a line in a poem, it is called fun. Okay. Kota is famous for its dams. It is also famous for its dams. So, if first dams refers to the water dams, the second dam refers to DAMN, dam pools. DAMN, dam pools, not looking after themselves, not putting the mask, not using the sanitizers. Okay, so just an example, dam word. So homophones are used for that. See the example, I saw. Here this saw is see ka past. See. I saw, which could not saw. Understood? Saw word. I saw, which could not saw. What we refuse to eat is thrown away as refuse. The second refuse refers to waste material. Okay. Then the third one, tallest building is library. Why do we call it as the tall building? Because it has thousands of stories. Understood? Stories here refers to storybooks as well as the stories. Just it is play on the words. Okay. A tiger can change its spots, but it cannot change its spots. So first spots refers to position. The second spots refers to its marks on the body. So the tiger can change its position, but it cannot change the marks which has on its body. So this is basically fun. Now the last one for today, irony. Last one for today, irony. The others will continue with tomorrow. It is a lightly sarcastic mode of speech. Sarcasm is used, okay, in which words are used to convey a meaning which is opposite to the literal sense. Means कहना कुछ और चाहते हैं, कह कुछ और रहे हैं. Okay, outwardly different, but actual meaning is different. Where we say one thing but mean the opposite of it. Poet कह कुछ और रहा है, मतलब इसका कुछ और है. That is irony. So there is verbal irony, there is situational irony, there is dramatic irony. Okay, examples have a look. No one could have done it better than you. So this is sarcasm because things hadn't been done correctly. So in a very sarcastic way you said, तुमसे अच्छा इसको और कोई कर भी नहीं सकता.